And we're live. We're back. Hello and welcome to Let's Talk About.
Yeah, we've been away for a couple of weeks, haven't we?
Life has gotten in the way of our YouTube commitments, but we are back with a vengeance. Although we may shift the time around. We were just having a bit of a discussion that it might be better for us to do a Tuesday evening, but we will chew on that and consider. I've got a few commitments that are going to take me out of action for the foreseeable afternoons, at least for the next few months. So,
yeah, I think it'll be more of a time slot as well, so that people can have got home if they need to, and then had something to eat or whatever, and switch it on ready, couldn't they? It's like
exactly, while settling down for a peaceful evening.
We can have a debate about something.
Oh, a healthy debate. Could get very good. Yes, I mean there are many subjects.
Yeah, there is so many subjects. This one's a huge subject, really, because you've got everything from it's just the whole bubble of love, which is not always a good thing, is it? So
a bubble of love. I love that phrase, a bubble of love. Well, relationships and the management thereof. And I was sitting thinking about this. As occasionally I will think, it's been known. And really thinking the expectations that people have of what men and women are supposed to contribute to a relationship as well. Then I could spend a lot of time getting on a very high horse about such things.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, well, hang on a minute. Why does it work that way and not that way? It's like, I don't agree. Never have done. Yeah. Leanne, hello.
Hi, Leanne. Yeah, it's funny because I saw someone had shared a page from it was kind of like Housewives of the 50s self-help book, you know what I mean? And God, the thing in the thing, it was like, when your husband comes home from work, don't mither him with your little whinges of the day and all this. And I'm like, oh my God, this is just, do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. It's terrible. I feel like, he's had a hard work dealing, and he'll be weary and all this, and I was like, oh my God, this is just so bad.
Yes, this is where the problem starts. There's an awful lot of crap about, and obviously through past generations, and there have always been people who've chosen not to abide by those rules, but it's become an expectation. Females are supposed to be this. Does being the proud possessor of a certain set of genitalia mean that you have to behave a certain way, and why?
And it was madness. And I was reading it, and it was like, make sure the children are clean and tidy, and that they keep the noise down. And I'm like, oh my God, what reality is this? It's just not. Yeah, it was
crazy.
Yeah, very, very. And I was just like, but this was a thing. This was how it was, wasn't it? Like, the kind of, the woman was meant to keep the house and make sure she was all presentable. That was another thing. Make sure you're presentable and refresh your makeup and all this. And I was like, oh my God, it's just, yeah, it was just mad.
It's creepy. It's mad. It's creepy, and there were so many instances where, two equal people in relationship, which is what relationship should be, a healthy one. Yeah. And then it's like, well, yes, but you've got no financial power. Awful. Your job is somehow looking after everything else other than, and nothing to do with money. So you're not bringing in money, but you're working like an absolute dog. There's a massive problem with this, and it sort of still hangs around even in this day and age. It's a lot subtler, but it takes decades to move things on,
Totally. And I mean, I was I never used to really like period drama, but I love it now, and I love how I love a certain side of it, like the sort of my lady and all that. I do kind of like that sort of thing. I just find it really like just the way they speak, you know what I mean? And like that sort of thing. And what was deemed as like, like your virtue is like the thing. Like if you weren't, if anyone was like affecting that or you did anything to affect that, it was like you were like solid goods. You were like, it's so weird how the saw things back then. But
that was the woman's currency. That was the only currency and powers you had. And the idea was you kept your hand on your purse until such time as you were married. But it's ridiculous. It is so insane. And it's all because of the fear of men. It's got nothing to do with
the thing was, even if like that wasn't your fault, even if you were assaulted and raped, you still were deemed in that way, which is like mental.
There are still some cultures which are not totally 100% removed from that either.
No.
It's a hangover. It's still there, and it's like and it all stems from a fellow needing to know that the children he was supposedly bringing up, or at least financing, were actually his. And all through eons of history, that has never been provable. It's never been the case.
Yeah. I think the other thing, it's also that thing that back then, which still can sometimes look true now, is that the only way that you can the only way you can improve yourself is by having a man, or like, especially for a woman back then, it was like the man, and then the man's status was all about that and the money that they had, and you know what I mean. And it's madness, isn't it, that's how people view things.
Exactly. I mean, at one point in time, a woman couldn't even own property. Her money was not hers; it was her dowry, and it automatically went to the husband. Literally, had no funds of their own. So if something went horribly wrong, they were often destitute.
Yeah,
absolute. I mean, it is horrendous, but that isn't about relationships per se. But that really sets up a kind of a dynamic of what people expect from a relationship, and where the power lies, and how people feel that they have to make it work, because financial situations even today still come into it. People with a house together, one, they can't afford to sell and split, they end up living in a house together, hating each other, poisoning all around them with their negative energy. And it happens a lot today too, so we're not out of it yet, but it takes all the romance out, doesn't it, really?
I think people sometimes view love as something like an ownership, if you know what I mean. Like you have ownership to that partner, or that's the happiness that those, you know what I mean, where your happiness has to come from you, and not from someone else. It comes from you, and then that person that you meet or you fall in love with should enhance that, not be an issue, or have any, just it's also down to like control and stuff that I always see
hugely. I mean, a lot of relationships will have an element of control in, or codependence, or unhealthy patterns. I mean, we're still so hung up on this kind of romantic notion that there's only ever one person for somebody, which is clearly in this day and age doesn't appear to be the case by and large. Causes no amount of heartache. The ability of people to be adult and not, as you say, not put the whole responsibility for your own happiness onto somebody else, because nobody else can make you happy. And two people together should be more than they are as individuals, not diminished or less than. Yeah,
definitely. I think like my parents, like when I was younger, my mum was, it was that sort of 90s 50s housewife essentially, even though it was the 70s when they got married, but they were brought up in that way. My dad became more of a modern man as he got older, if you know what I mean. Like he's when he was younger, when they were first married, Mum would put like meals on the table and blah blah blah, do you know what I mean, that kind of thing, hot meals on the table when he'd come in and whatever. And she was like, once they had children, she was a stay-at-home mom, and so it was that kind of thing, you know. But like money and stuff, it was always like everything that came into the house went into one pot. The house was like the household bills and everything went out first, and then whatever was left, if you needed something, you could get it. You know, there was my dad never had like my dad wasn't like strict like, oh no, you've got to ask me if you need a new blouse or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like that.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
It was just and yeah, it's still a lot different nowadays. You know what I mean? But
yeah, because quite often more than one person is earning. I mean, not always, and obviously, especially with people with very young children, quite often it's not feasible for them to go out to work. And I think what happens is in the early years of having kids is that you end up, that is your job for a short amount of time, but then it all shifts and changes as the children get older. Then you kind of claim back your time and space. But it is a sort of mutual understanding that two people need to come to about their values, how they feel about money, what's up for discussion, what their rules and limits are, where they draw the line in the sand. Because people don't often have those conversations, and these days people tend to get married somewhat later and with a bit more consideration. It's not a rush thing, so maybe they've had the chance to talk about these things. But I think an awful lot of people, especially back in the day, didn't, and then they found out they were on completely different paths.
No, I think my mum and dad probably did. They both had traditional values, but like my mum ruled the roost. You know what I mean? Like there was no doubt about it. My mum ruled the roost, so there was no argument on that one. But but I think they both did have like that sort of traditional sort of upbringing. You know what I mean? But like she would never let any man speak to her in any. You know what I mean? Like there was never any of that. My mum was definitely the boss, as it were.
Good. Yeah, she sounds like a pretty good, strong character there. In fact, Leanne's just said here that, and this is exactly what I'm saying, is where people get stuck and trapped, but she's living in the same house as her husband of 42 years. The house is worth a fair amount and it's mortgage free, but they can't afford to sell it and actually then live in the same area. So they've both got partners of their own, which is lovely, and they both get on. So they've been able to negotiate to a livable situation, but that isn't true for everybody. But this is the thing of people being tied because of financial constraints or children or whatever. It's never as simple as, oh, you should leave. You hear people say that. Life isn't that simple for an awful lot of women. And it's relationships should change over time and they should evolve. If they stay exactly the same, something is a little wrong. Oh, Lizzie and Louie have been engaged for 18 years. They're just making sure they're right for each other. Well, exactly. There's not always a need to be married, is there? I mean, there's a legal consideration, but in reality, I think if you're with someone for that long, they're a keeper.
Definitely. I was saying to my brother just before, like, I rang him because I was like, I'm ringing you now so you don't ring us in the middle of the live, because
he does do that.
Yeah, he does. So I told him the subject, and he was like, because he's been with his well, I call him my sister-in-law, even though they're not married, but they've been together 26 years. 3 kids later and whatnot. But as I said to you last week, I think not last week, it was 2 weeks ago or whatever, we were last year, that he is the house husband. They definitely have the other roles, you know what I mean? My brother does do photography and stuff, but usually it's at times that are like, if it's a gig or something, it's a nighttime or a weekend when it's a wedding or whatever. So he does bits of that, but in the main, he's the home looker after her, whatever you call it these days. And he was saying that he believes it's like it's obviously give and take, do you know what I mean, with anything, I suppose. But he was saying that people put too much, like he said, a lot of his friends and stuff that he knows won't allow their partners to do things, and he can't get over that. He said, like, we, you should never stop someone doing stuff they want to do. Like that just shouldn't happen. Like he said, and he said even stuff is like going out with their friends and stuff, they're not allowed to because they don't. It's trust issue, isn't it? And if you've got
Yeah.
trust issues, then
that's not a healthy
That's
relationship,
not
is
good,
it?
no.
Something's very wrong.
He
And
says-
that's control as well. That is controlling behaviour, coercive behaviour.
completely. And he says Andrea does what she wants. Obviously, he said if it's like a big thing, we discuss it, of course.
Yeah, of
But he
course.
said I don't. Yeah.
Well, good for him. You know, he's breaking the mold a bit, I think. But yeah, but the trust issues. If you, you know, not trusting somebody or trusting somebody doesn't actually affect their behaviour. In fact, you're more likely to push them into doing something a bit off the rails if you're restricting their ability to be themselves. People should be free to be themselves.
Works,
Yeah. That's it's terrible, really. But quite often what will happen is there's compromise, which is a good thing, you know, to be able to work out, because you can't have everything your own way when there's a couple of you in the relationship. You have to kind of give and take. But the thing is, if it's all one way, or the compromise is so far that you're doing it for a quiet life because you don't want the rows, which I know happens a lot, then something is very wrong at the heart of it, and it's all going to go, you know, there's going to be a payback at some point. It can't.
Yeah.
Trust is fundamental, because everybody's different. You know, for some people, monogamous relationships aren't the way to go. It isn't their way. But if they're honest and discuss and are open, then at least they've got a chance. And you know, the worst thing is when you get two people where one person is absolutely wants, you know, the person to themselves and to own and possess, and the other person is actually much more of a free spirit, shall we say?
Yeah.
And you know, that's going to be horrible if it's not worked out quite early on.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand that some people are different. You know, like my dad he liked to party, he loved a good sing song, whatever. My mum would like to sit with a read a book. They were totally different. You know what I mean? And there'd be quite often my dad would go to, you know, events alone because my mum just, you know, it'll be someone, you know, some friend of his party, whatever. My mum wouldn't go. I mean, she would go to a lot of things, but it wasn't her thing, you know, and that wasn't anything against them, but she would never say, oh, well, you can't go because I'm not coming. Do you know what I mean?
He obviously had trust in him that he'd go out, have a good time, come back happy, you know, and she knew she didn't want to go. That's lovely. That's a proper compromise in that, we could do it together or we can go different places on our own. Either way, it's fine. It doesn't kind of gnaw away at the core of the
an issue, and it didn't matter whose it was, what event it was, or whatever. It was never an issue. It was to just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Worked out. You know what I mean? So
well, that's lovely, you know. But like I say, so many relationships don't last the course, and I also think people have incredibly high expectations of what they think being in a relationship is, and that, again, this whole thing of somebody else is supposed to, you know, that all the days are meant to be sunny, that you're not meant to have difficult times, and that again is a complete myth, because every relationship has its ups and downs, and part of it is learning how to negotiate your way through it, and communication, obviously 100% the thing, but
massively,
you know.
And then when resentment sets in, and then it becomes this kind of like, you know, I'm gonna say no because you said no, kind of. You know what I mean? Yeah. No.
It's that sort of passive aggressive thing as well, of trying to take back power, but doing it in a way that is kind of underhand, and that's horrible. That you can see, you know, we all know couples who are like that, where they kind of snipe at each other constantly, and they profess that they care about each other, but that's a horrible way to live. Yeah.
Yeah, unrealistic.
Yeah. Oh, hello, Chris. Yeah, back in the day, it was mainly the man that drove, so the lady wasn't independent. And that did happen. And I've got relatives where, although the lady learned how to drive, just didn't, because the fellow always did the driving, and that's just empowering in a way. It's, I know some people are bad passengers, and sitting next to someone who's just done their test is going to give us all the heebie-jeebies. But, you know, people learn by doing stuff. You have to kind of let them get on with it. But it does mean that, again, it's about power and independence. You can't just get up and go somewhere if you're going to go, well, I'm just going to storm out and stand by the bus stop for half an hour.
Yeah, and it's that sort of thing of like, you know, a manly role, a manly thing, isn't it? Like
it was
back then. Yeah, that was what it was classed as. It's what men did. Like men went to the gentlemen's clubs and men drank alcohol, and men, you know, men did what they wanted and women didn't. That was the best of
it. Those were the days. Yes. Yeah, and that's the thing, that even sort of driving, again, anything that gives you independence and power was very much not encouraged, shall we say. There were always people who chose not to pay any attention to that, but an awful lot of people did let the husband do the driving, or just, you know, because it was easier. And I think sometimes when you allow something because you think it seems like an easy choice at the time to just let something slide, but actually you really then start to set up a precedent, because people are naturally opportunists and they get set in certain behaviours. So if you kind of give the opportunity for somebody to become that, they will become that, even if it's not necessarily what happened in another situation.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been in a relationship for like over 20 years, which is a long time.
Yeah,
a long time. And now, because of obviously issues that I have, I don't feel like I could ever be in one. If that makes sense. Just because I wouldn't want to be a burden on somebody, like, and that's like a big thing. But also, I've been on my own that long that I don't know, you know, I just don't know how it works anymore. What do you do? Take them for a walk or something? I don't know. And I mean, I don't know. It's just, it's kind of, it's a weird thing, but at the same time, sometimes I do feel lonely, because I feel like other people have that sort of someone in their life that they can, you know what I mean? Just
it's that person that you're closest to, that you share your life with and your experience with, and that you can talk to. And I mean, that's one of the most valuable things about relationships that last. Will last based on the fact that you have a lot in common subconsciously. You may appear to be quite different, but there'll be something very fundamental that connects you. And you know, people are going to change over time, but their fundamental essence doesn't. So it's being able to talk to somebody, and it's difficult. It is harder to find someone later on in life, or, you know, rather than early on. It's never impossible. I mean, my own sister is a delightful example of someone who found someone she was 50 when she met her chap who's now going to be her husband. And that was after coming out of a horrendous relationship and really, really thinking that she was never, ever going to be with anyone again. So there is always hope. There is always someone out there, but it's being open to it and doing it on your own terms as well. It's like, well, you know, love a relationship. However, this is how it's going to work.
Yeah. I kind of think, and I probably just don't, well, in the most part, don't really think about it anymore, because it's just one of them things, isn't it? And one of the last relationships I had, I think one of the things that was said to me at the time, and I really had mentally, I wasn't very good in how I viewed myself. And I think they said, whether they thought it was to help, was like something along the lines of, if you lose weight, then I'll marry you, or something like that was said to me.
That is so awful.
It was. Rude. I was devastated. Obviously, it led to the end of our relationship eventually, but it just, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Anyone that would say that to you, putting a condition on anything, that's you love someone, you love them unconditionally, and it's not about, if you do this, then this will happen. No. You were well shot of that.
Oh, definitely. But,
yeah, you need someone who cares and loves you for you, and
whatever. Exactly.
The essence of
it. And it shouldn't have any. But if this is, it should never be an if this. None of us are perfect. None of us, but You're supposed to like the good and the bad. You take the both. That's how it works.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, there we go. Leanne's doing amazing. He's 69. Was 65 when you met your partner, and you had the breast cancer op before. So yeah, so that's a tough time, and you had someone who was there for you. That's bloody marvelous, and makes hell of a difference with anything like that. Yes, that's yeah. Congratulations, Leanne. Yeah, there you go.
And you it wasn't for life. There were circumstances that caused me to feel that 14 years later we divorced and I met Louis, best thing I ever did.
Yeah.
That's good. It's good that like someone like you, obviously you move on and you find the right person. You know what I mean?
Yeah. A lot of people the first time round, because they change and the people they marry change. I mean, they do not stay the same by any means. They don't always turn out the way you expected.
No.
But that's the lovely thing, is meeting someone a little bit later in life, is that you really know what you don't want as well as what you do. And you're much more maybe tolerant of things, but also not tolerant of things that go against your sense of self.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to be said for, later relationships. They can be extraordinarily fulfilling. So yes, there's always hope, Lainey. There's always hope.
Yeah.
Don't give up.
I'm one of them people. I kind of think I'll never say never, but do you know what I mean? But also there's that thing is that people say it's when you're not looking for it that it usually happens. It's that
True.
kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I mean, long on my days of going out clubbing and all that stuff. So
yes, a club is probably not where you're not going to meet your next one. But yeah, they, like I say, the more you're, I say, out and about generally, but certainly meeting people, whether it's online or otherwise, there's always the chance that something unexpected can happen.
Yeah. I was just thinking, I've like so many friends and people out and family members that I've seen go through like toxic relationships that when you're on the outside, it's so easy to see the issues and stuff when you're on the inside. Because people always say love is blind, and I always add and deaf, dumb, and stupid as well. Because it like it completely changes you when you love someone. You know what I mean? And I've like my daughter, she had like a relationship with another female who was basically a narcissist. And I've seen that a few times, and I've seen women go through a lot of physical abuse as well as mental abuse. And then I used to think, why'd you go back? Why'd you, but it's that sort of thing until when you're meant. I mean, I was younger then, like seeing that happen to a friend of mine, especially a friend of mine. And I used to get so mad at the fact that she kept going back, and she always say she was going to stop, but it's that sort of thing, isn't it? It's love, and then when you love someone truly, and then they can manipulate you.
Yeah, like, is that love really? Is that really what love should be about?
Well, that's what I used to say to her. But, yeah, but that's what I used to say to her at the time. Like,
it's need, not necessarily. The difference between need and love can be very, very fine.
Yeah, but
and
also,
if someone's always needing, then there's a real. And often they've been brought up to believe they can't function on their own. So the whole thing, just the confidence, the lack of confidence that goes with it.
Yeah, because they trod them down that much.
Yeah.
In the things that they've said to them, that they have no confidence of their own, and that there is no escape. Do you know what I mean? And it takes obviously a long time, and sometimes years and years. People go through it for years and years before finally just something snaps. You know what I mean? And
a good friend of mine was with the husband for 30 years. Absolutely atrocious, horrific. And I have another friend who is still in a very, very peculiar setup, and But all I can do is be there, and when help's needed, I'm in there. But until they're
Yeah.
asked,
Yeah,
no.
I think when I was younger, so I'm like talking in my early 20s at the time, and I just used to get so frustrated at her in the sense that she would always go back. And I
Yeah.
mean, he'd kick her in the stomach when she was pregnant and everything. And like, I used to forget, like, I couldn't get my head around it. But I mean, I'm older now and I do have more understanding. And not only do are the kind of groomed in a way, aren't they? Like,
Oh, totally.
essentially, um, even if it's someone of like a similar age, to sort of
Mm.
mentally groomed and trodden down essentially that way, isn't it? So
They choose someone who's got a vulnerability, and then they exploit it to the full. It's even, like I say, some people we know are vulnerable. There's some people you think they seem so strong, they seem so this, that. Oh no, they have an Achilles heel, and that person will find it and exploit it and turn an otherwise perfectly competent, powerful person into just a mess, completely disempowered, completely undermined, and not themselves. They end up not trusting in their own judgment. But I've seen that happen a number of times. It's recoverable and come back from it. It's a bloody hard journey, and they're brave. People who can get out of that are so brave.
Yeah, definitely. And I have seen people who have getting out of it, and I mean, obviously my friend isn't in that situation now, but it took her a long time and 2 children later before she did get out of it.
Yeah. Chris has said, have you seen the Tina Turner life story? I saw Tina Turner the musical on Thursday after about 2 years of not being able to go, of having madness and mayhem and cancellations and God knows what. So yes, I have actually seen that, and it resonated a lot with a lot of people. I fair to say.
And yet you would look at Tina Turner and you would think, oh, she's a strong woman and blah blah blah. You wouldn't expect that to have that past, would you? You wouldn't.
Exactly, but the whole problem didn't start with Ike Turner. He saw something vulnerable and exploited it, but it actually started in her childhood, and that is so true. For a lot of people, you will often find a lot of trauma has gone on in early childhood. Certainly when I was working as a therapist, you start kind of unpicking and backtracking, and it would go way, way back. And until you heal that early life trauma, it's very hard to really move forward and change your patterns. Very hard. That's your film to watch this week. It's your film.
The Tina Turner's life story.
Yeah, I'm sure I have seen the movie, but the stage show was very good in the end.
I think I must have seen it. I mean, I knew that there was it was an abusive relationship, so I must have, but maybe not. I'm not sure. Leanne says she has a split life. On Sunday evening to Thursday at home doing eBay and see my friends, and then Thursday PM to Sunday with partner, so best of both worlds.
That's quite a good arrangement, really, when you think about it. It's like, oh, actually.
Yeah. you can, you have that. It's a good way to work it out.
Exactly. I mean, I'm incredibly fortunate with my partner because I can go away, and go off and do my things, my witchy things and other such. And there's absolutely no issue around trust. It would be the same, if they were going off and it works so well. We're very different people with quite different lives now. We've been together for a very, very long time, but that's okay. It's all right.
Well, that's the thing. It works for the things that you enjoy together, you can do together, and then obviously you have your own separate interests, and you have to be your own person as well. You can't be. And I have seen on occasion like people wearing the same jumpers and sort of like, there was a couple and they used to like make me cringe, and they'd have if they weren't matching jumpers, it would be like matching in colours, and then they could come into a room, and there'd be like 20 seats available, and she'd sit on his knee, and I'd like, oh, can I just like go now?
It's a bit vommy, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, if it works for them, who am I to judge? You know what I mean? I couldn't have that sort of, if they both needed that, you know, constant.
Yeah, a constant
Then-
reassurance and a lot of people do live this slightly codependent life where they have to be in each other's pockets because it feels very unsafe not to be, and that probably is a trust thing too, but that also is very conditioned from a young age, that the clinginess, if you like, that need. Yeah, I mean, I'm probably completely reverse. I'm very much not that way, but then, you know, most people are somewhere in the middle. I think I'm probably far too independent for most people to stand.
Yeah,
That's how it is.
It's healthy to have like your own life as well, and be your own person, separate from being a partner, a mum, a boss, or a, you know, your own boss or whatever. Separate from that stuff that you enjoy to do, and give you, you know, that boost to keep going on and whatever.
And there's a whole thing around it where people think that if you're not always doing something for somebody else, or you're not being in your roles, that you're being selfish. And that's always used as a derogatory term. But when I was working as a therapist, I very much spent time working with people going, it's okay to be selfish. Sometimes you need to look after you, because you can't be giving out to everybody else if you haven't got the reserves, if there isn't a pool of energy and self-care that goes on, self-care being the modern term for it, obviously, but you need to be selfish sometimes, and it's okay. You have as much right as anyone else to your own life and your own space and your own way of doing things.
Yeah, definitely. I think you can't, even, like, you know, in a relationship, you can't like everything that your partner does. You know what I mean? Even in friendships, you know, with friends, you don't like everything that person thinks. You don't like all their values. You don't like, you know what I mean? So to have your own separate things, and I think I said this before, in like in friendships, I have ones where I can speak to if it's a serious matter, and I know some people, it's not good to go to them for a serious matter because they catastrophize it and make it a lot worse.
Yes, exactly. There are certain friends that, you know, will step up and assist in whatever way, and will be there, even if it's just as a listening ear, then that's fine. But there's so many other people who get caught up in their own drama and bring their own shit into it. It's very difficult not to do, but it's really important. I think part of the thing of being a good friend and or a good partner, interchangeable really, I suppose, and not for most of it, is the point of actually respecting the other person in their own right. And I have known people, and I've had friendships with people who I've loved dearly, who have wanted to be like your only friend. And it's like, I can't do that. I can't live that way. I have a number of friends, not loads, but I have some good friends who are my lifelong friends, and that's how it works. So to think that because you care for one friend, you somehow can't care for another, it's very unhealthy. And I actually, in one particular case, I had to actually step out of it because it hurt me too much, and it was just so difficult to deal with, because you couldn't, whatever you did was never enough. I cannot be that person. It's not me.
Mine got like a really bad situation where she would ring me at like 2-3 o'clock in the morning, drunk, having a fight with her partner, and I was like in the middle of it.
Oh God. But nothing you could do, obviously. You're at the other end of the phone, and clearly if someone's in that sort of a state, really, if it's that bad, A, they should be phoning the police, and B,
and this one time she rang, like, she would I think it was something to do with, like, she was having an argument with him, and he was saying that Facebook had unblocked this girl on his Facebook, and so she rang me to see if, like, if I knew if that was true. Whilst he was there, it was 3 o'clock in the morning. I'd been really ill, and I must have I woke up eventually, was in the middle of this thing, and after I put the phone down, calmed her down and everything and whatever, I looked at my phone and I had 12 missed calls. She was determined to get through to me.
Yeah.
that wasn't a good friendship in the end. So
No, and you know, an awful lot of friendships do have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and relationships are the same. They're not always designed for life. You know,
no,
there isn't that degree of certainty. You might wish that they will last.
yeah.
Some friendships will be lifelong, some will not, and you don't know which. You just hope that whatever happens, that you learn something from it, and that it's.
Well, I think I learned not to let it go like it did for as long as it did. One thing I learned, you know, realize
you get caught up in it, don't you? You get caught up in the drama and wanting to trying to help someone who especially is in a situation which she thinks a bit.
She was always in a situation, that was the thing as well. And she was mouthy, and so she brought a lot of situations on herself.
Okay, yes, that's got slightly self-inflicted, but it's you shouldn't really have had to be so involved in it, because it really was nothing to do with you. So and then if you didn't do what was required or what they thought was supposed to happen, then somehow you'd be the bad guy. It's like
and I suppose that's the same in obviously love relationships, like, you know, that how that becomes, isn't it? Where like if someone believes that something should be done for whatever reason. I don't know why I'm going to bring this up, but you must have seen the whole slap with Will Smith thing.
Oh gosh, you couldn't get away from it, could you?
No, it's everywhere. It still is, to be honest.
It's complicated. Whatever is going on, it's complicated.
Yeah. Obviously, they supposedly have an open relationship, which doesn't seem very open to me, but that's my viewpoint from the outside.
It seems messy.
Yeah, very messy. But I couldn't understand with it. Like, when he made the joke, all right, maybe it wasn't the best joke if the lady has alopecia, etc. However, he may not have known that, and then whatever. But nothing, no matter what you say, ever resort to violence. It should never resort to violence, no matter what anyone says. And like, he laughed. Obviously, it showed him laughing, and then obviously her face was like thunder, and it made us wonder, like, in the sense of why, if she was upset by it, why didn't she say something? That's what I thought.
Why didn't she go up and have a word? Because that's what, you know, that's kind of what I would understand. I'd be like, oi.
You know what I mean? Like, why did she have to? That was one of the things that bugged me, is that why did there have to be? Why did it have to look like the man had to take? You know what I mean?
Why did she give him the nod and tell him what to, and obviously say sort that out? And as you say, originally he was actually laughing at the joke because he clearly thought it was a bit in bad taste, but wasn't. Yeah. It was her that was upset about it more than him. There's a lot of dynamic going on there that I'm sure has been discussed all over the web. But I think, of course he shouldn't have done it. But
no,
Chris Phil could have been a bit more careful with his jokes. But then they always have slightly risky and things on these things. I mean,
Ricky, I mean, obviously what Ricky Gervais said is always been true. He tends to hit where the nerve is.
He does, yeah. There's a tradition.
But like you said, it never should have responded in that way. If he was upset by it, why didn't he just say something? And like you said, I think you were kind of given the nod.
Why didn't she say something?
It was aimed at her.
Hello?
Why does it have to be? Why couldn't she just have stood up and said, do you know what? I hope you're happy with that joke, but I have alopecia or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's out in the open. Why couldn't she say it there and then? It's already out.
Exactly. I mean, Will Smith is it looks like he's in danger of possibly losing that Oscar he so desperately wanted over all the years that he's been acting. He's a very, very good actor. He's clearly a very vulnerable and quite childlike personality. That's a given.
And
I think the power lies more with her than it does with him. There's definite dynamics there.
And it made me wonder, in the same instance where, like, every time apart from what happened with my daughter, and there wasn't violence, it was just all mental. Like, it's always been like the man who's been the controlling abuser.
Not always.
But it isn't always, and it makes me wonder how that obviously must have affected him over the years, because clearly to do that, on the fact that, if I don't say anything, I mean, whether he was if I don't say anything, she's going to be like, you know what I mean, a nightmare
Who
or
knows what goes on
whatever.
behind the doors, but
You don't, do you? I mean, we're surmising, I guess, but
of course,
it,
yeah.
it's just to have that sort of totally open in the media, you know what I mean?
Well, exactly. He's horribly under scrutiny. There's
Yeah,
no hiding. There's nowhere to hide, and his life is going to be pretty miserable one way and another from here on in for a bit.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Interesting to see what they make of it in the long run, but yeah.
yeah. It's a hard one, that, but something so, because like mostly that sort of thing is, we don't see, especially, but when you do something that obvious in public, then everybody sees.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all unfolds. But I'm sure in a lot of ways, no member of the public's ever really going to know the truth of what goes on there. But it's clearly very complicated. Yeah.
I think it was Susan who said to me, she says, "Can you imagine, you know, being violent in public, like on that big award show, and like it kind of makes it look like you're above the law if you're famous, So like the viewpoint of children looking at that, seeing someone famous do what they want and smack someone in public and then get an award for it, because that's what it looks like
It could be read that way. Yeah.
by someone young enough to look at it that way and not know the ins and outs. So yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't do well. No, it doesn't play well. But yeah, I'll be interested to see, where it goes. But I mean, like I say, I'm sure Twitter, which I don't tweet, for God forbid, I'm sure it's absolutely alive with the stuff. Yeah, and they're very quick to come down on people. So and that's the problem with fame. It's so easy, to be up there on the pedestal, but then we knock right off it.
Yeah.
Press do.
Yeah.
So, but he's that self-inflicted. Well, yeah. Oh, silly man, really.
Definitely.
And not being able to sort of turn around to his missus and go, "I'll deal with this later," which, if that's what she was wanting, at least, but not.
Like we said, why couldn't she have stood up and said, she clearly wasn't happy about it, so she could have said something.
Exactly, it was her responsibility to sort it out, not the husband.
Yeah.
But again, as we say, there are hangovers from all sorts of conditionings that people have about what they think people should do, and it's oh no. Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, there's always controversy at the Oscars, that's for sure.
It's true.
I didn't actually watch it. I only ever saw the clip. I don't.
I did as well, to be honest, and it was only because someone had mentioned it. Oh, did you see what happened? And I was like, no. I knew that I really liked him, which is, it's sort of, I still, like him as an actor, but it's I always thought that he came across as a really nice person, and now that's sort of like, put that sort of thing over it, tarnishing it, I guess.
I think so. When someone has a very squeaky, clean image, it's when it gets tarnished. But then, they're human, I guess. I know they did it with, there was a whole load of stuff about Johnny Depp, wasn't there? No one will ever really know the truth about that. But in a way, he's an easy target to go for, because they're like, oh, he's eccentric, he's this, he's that. It's like, probably not. The people who seem to be incredibly nice often have the other side. The people who think are crazy and nuts and what have you, usually actually. Right. It's funny how that works.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't it just?
Yeah. But I do like the Men in Black movies, I must admit. I always used to quite enjoy.
Well, I always used to love Prince of Bel-Air, and then obviously everything he's done really I've pretty much liked. So but, yeah. I was just thinking, one of the things we didn't really cover is the whole sort of romance side of things. Like,
no, we kind of skipped, didn't we, straight through to
straight through to the toxic people. No, didn't do that.
Relationship. I mean, that kind of falling in love with somebody is the most amazing thing on earth. The thing is, it's rare that is actually sustained. An awful lot of that is hormones, chemistry.
Yeah.
That blind kind of mad whirlwind. And a lot of people are in love with being in love, because that's quite easy to do. It's a very addictive thing. It's basically a drug manufactured by your own internal state that projects that onto this other person as being the perfect whatever. So but it's still a lovely thing. It doesn't diminish how powerful and fabulous it is. It's just not particularly sustainable. There has to be more to a relationship than that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think also like the sort of working out whether someone likes you just as a friend, or because I think I've seen it
Mm.
happen, and I've seen people get the wrong idea from like just being friendly to like the, because some people don't get flirting whatsoever, do they? And they have no sort of concept of flirting, so it can either be took it's sort of a fine line between someone being nice to you to someone really liking you, to then the other side of that where they don't pick up on the signs. So it's kind of like
Mm.
it's just this whole huge like spectrum, I guess, of where you fit on that. And
Absolutely. I mean, flirting is the most wonderful game if that's what both sides understands. That's exactly what it is, and there's nothing wrong. Even if you're in a committed relationship, there's flirting can be great fun, but it's kind of knowing when to stop and reading the signs of somebody who's clearly not quite playing to go, yeah, okay, to wind it back down again. But yeah, I mean, it's a game. It is a game, and it's a lot of fun. But that's kind of what it should be. If you've got serious intent, you have to be, and accept the other person might very well just be playing the game rather than the intent. It's very hard to know. It's incredibly hard to know.
It is. It's really hard to know, and then also you get into those situations where you know, I think there's a term now, isn't it? It's called ghosting, where like people are ignored. It's like all yeah. So there's all this sort of conversation, maybe even meeting up and whatever, and then all of a sudden they're shut out, they're ghosted.
But written flirting is not the same as sitting opposite somebody and reading all the signs and the signals and it's like a symphony of stuff going on, and you can kind of work it all out. Literally, I mean, I always thought texts are the worst things in the world because they can be read so many different ways and misinterpreted. It's like, it's no way to. No, that's not flirting. That's
but it's how like it's become now, isn't it? Because of the dating sort of apps and like it's how it's all become. It's becoming that way. So that the people, but
it's so easy to be played when someone's just good at stringing words together or responding in a way that they're saying what they think you want to hear. It's not difficult to work out, and all this sort of catfishing business where people are pretending to be someone they're not. And, just it's extraordinary what goes on, but it's something I'm so unfamiliar with because I'm old, and it's not how I do things. I'm very old.
No, I mean, although that's not what I said earlier.
Yes, indeed.
No, but I was talking about people who'd been on the show before.
We were talking about bringing the Banish Bin back. That's the sort of news, isn't it? The Banish Bin is going to come back. Possibly with some revisited guests or old guests, as delicately put it, from previous episodes, and hopefully some new ones. And it looks like it's going to be marvellous.
Yeah, I'm going to try and put together a few new categories as well.
Yes, because that'll make it more fun for the people who are doing it for the second time, and that it'll also challenge and things like that. Yes, it's great fun, and it makes people think on their feet, because some people come with huge long lists and very prepared reasons, and other people like me just saunter on and go, nah, think of something. And you always do. I always do.
You do. You benefit.
Yeah.
I think we could probably revisit this whole love romance.
I'm sure there will be new areas because it is massive, and it all depends also your view is going to depend on what stage you're at in your life, what your current relationship status is, and it can all change in a blink of an instant. That's the marvellous thing about it all. The whole world can be transformed just by bumping into one person. How fab is that? That's the delight of the whole romance thing. Life should be romantic. It should have space for it stops you being so engrossed in the normal day-to-day stuff, and it does take you to a different place.
Yeah, it's
Rose
kind of
tinted
a bit
glasses.
magical, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit magical, but it's also, you know, like the level of people's hurt and how that ends up going, and you know, because when you think something's going to go one way and then it doesn't, blah blah blah. But
and knowing how to end things well,
yeah, and
knowing
also
how to end things is actually an important lesson that a lot of people don't
not
learn. So
getting
if you do
closure.
have to end something, be honest. Don't keep them hanging on. Be merciful. Don't be brutal.
Yeah.
And do it face to face, and not right in the stores, whatever. You know, all these sort of rules for life that should be about treating someone, whether it's a friend or a love friend or partner or whatever, with enough respect to, you know, to honour their feelings. And if you have to let someone down, try to do it as gently as possible. It's only fair, but you can't stop someone being hurt. They're going to be hurt.
Yeah, that's true. But like you said, it's about doing it as kind as possible, but as honest as possible without, like, you know, kind of thing.
I always say honesty with mercy. It's like you're not going in to be brutal and hurt, but you need to be honest and yet be kind.
Yeah, just sort of say this isn't working for me. And I think the thing is that people look at faulting themselves because of it, and it's not faulting you. It's just not right for that time or whatever. But
exactly.
It's just life, isn't it? But you always, or you want some sort of closure. You need an exact reason why.
Yeah, and there often isn't one. It's just that two people aren't completely matched at that time.
Sometimes you never get one. You know, like you just don't.
You know, one person will be more in love, if you like, than the other person. That just happens. And it's, the thing is to recognise if someone has gone too far ahead of heels with you, and that's you're not getting that, then you have to set them free enough before it gets too bad. You know, you're trying to be kind. There's always room for kindness in the world. Oh, Jules in. Hello, Jewelry Sales. Hi, I married the boyfriend I'd had since we were both 15. By 33 and 2 young kids, he left. I've no desire to date at all and haven't at all, and I'm 52 now. Had offers, but I like being on my own. There's a lot to be said for being on your own and the independence involved. But, you know, you never know. You never know when actually somebody who does respect you as you are now and is prepared and enjoys all of that will pop along.
When my auntie said to me once, she said she'd been married for a long time and then her husband passed away, and she never thought that she would date anyone again, and after about 8 years she had what they're called, trying to think of the best way of putting it, like men friend, you know what I mean, that she would go away with and spend time with, and like I'm trying, there's a word begins with a C and it's not coming into my head. Companionship.
Yes.
The word. I was trying to think of.
That's a good word.
And she said to me, she, like, when I first came out of hospital and everything and was like, you know, on the road to recovery and whatever, she said to me, she says, get yourself a few companions. She says, never wash a man's knickers again.
There's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah. And she said she used to have a great time. She'd go away for a weekend or whatever, or sometimes it'd just stay in or whatever. But yeah,
all the fun and none of the commitment.
That's it. Like she'd been married. She'd had 3 kids. She'd been married since she was 19, and he passed away 30 years. Like we were together 30 years, and then after that, like she just enjoyed herself a bit.
I think that's lovely. It's not hurting anybody. Everyone's honest about it.
Their own place,
bringing people on.
She didn't have them, you know, when they might have came around for the night or whatever, but like they didn't live rash, never. So
it's, you know, there's many different ways to live a life. There isn't a right or wrong way.
That's true.
And if it makes you happy and it's not hurting somebody else, I kind of think, Where's the problem?
Yeah, exactly. That's my viewpoint as well.
So
So,
what does that do?
shall we come back to this subject next week, or
Let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat what you would
Yeah.
like. Any hot topics of that you'd
or
like us
is there anything anyone wants? Yeah, if anybody in the chat wants to suggest something, let us know. And then we'll come back with that. Or if you're watching this after.
Yeah, we're probably going to try Tuesday evenings. We're going to go for an evening
Yeah.
slot. Maybe about 7:30. I think it's going to work because then we'll have had supper. We'll have been
Yeah.
done, and be all refreshed and raring to go. So and that'll help because obviously a lot of people are very busy during the daytime, so can't necessarily tune in. So we'll go with that.
Yeah, so we'll do like the evenings 7:30 till 8:30 probably, and Tuesdays. Keep on the Tuesdays, but do it at 7:30 till 8:30. And then the band spin will come back at 9.
Yay!
Well, not this week, or next. Be from the 19th.
Right.
Back, so yeah.
Fabulous.
If anyone wants to make a suggestion, like we said, and we'll
keep going.
You'll find out whatever the subject is on the title next week, which will be on my channel.
It will.
So yeah, 7:30 next Tuesday on my channel. That's it, really, isn't it?
Okay, so time for awkward waving, and we'll see you all next week at the new later time. So bye now.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. Oh, here we go. End broadcast. Yes.